Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this very exciting 36th induction ceremony of the Maine Women's Hall of Fame. My name is Lynn Soucy, and I am a trustee of the BPW Maine Futurama Foundation. Thank you for joining us in person and virtually by live stream on this beautiful Maine day as winter transitions into spring. Thank you also for your contributions that support this event and the scholarships we award each year. Thanks to Danielle Paws, our harpist today, for her beautiful performance as we gathered for this program. The BPW Maine Futurama Foundation is very proud to induct Dr. Elaine O'Connor and the late Frances Perkins into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame. BPW Maine President, Futurama Foundation President Myra Shalhoub was unable to be here today. On her behalf, I would like to recognize the other trustees joining us and ask them to stand and be recognized at this time. Trustees? Thank you. We are also joined today by nearly 20 women who have already been inducted into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame. I'd like to ask those past honorees to please stand and be recognized. Thank you. I am now pleased to present Cynthia Kitchen, Director of Library Services, to bring us greetings from the University of Maine at Augusta.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor to welcome you on behalf of UMA Libraries to the UMA campus and home of the Maine Women's Hall of Fame collection. For more than 3 decades, this Hall of Fame has lifted up stories of courage, leadership, and service that continue to shape our communities. UMA is proud to be the home of the physical Hall of Fame display. Along one of the entrance walls in the Bennett D. Cates Library, we host a powerful visual timeline, the photographs and citations for every inductee. As you walk along that wall, you see the history of Maine told through the faces and words of these remarkable women. In addition to the portraits, the library cares for program materials and citations that help document the story of the Hall of Fame over time. We think of it as both a gallery and an archive. It is a place where students, faculty, staff, and community members can pause, read, and reflect on what leadership and advocacy look like in real lives. In my years as Director of Library Services, I've seen many people interact with this collection. Students come across it on a campus tour and suddenly slow down to read every plaque. Community members visit to specifically find their inductee, someone from their town or profession. Faculty bring classes to stand in front of the wall and connect these lives to what they are studying in class. Some people discover it by accident and then find themselves standing there much longer than they expected. We hear some recurring questions at the library desk. People ask how someone is chosen for the Hall of Fame or where they can find more about a particular woman's work. Sometimes they ask why they've never heard some of these names before, given how much they clearly did for the state of Maine. Those questions often turn into meaningful conversations about whose stories get preserved and celebrated. I hope visitors see that leadership in Maine has many faces and many paths, and that this is not just a display of individual accomplishments, but a collection of stories about persistence, community care, and long-term commitment. The Maine Women's Hall of Fame matters because it keeps those stories present in a public, everyday space and reminds us that progress for women in Maine was built by people who organized, advocated, taught, created, and led. The collection in Cates Library helps keep that history in view for everyone who comes through our doors. At the end of today's ceremony, I hope you will join us in Cates Library as we install the portraits of Dr. O'Connor and Frances Perkins in the Hall of Fame display, and take a few moments to view the wall, read the citations, and spend some time with the stories behind the names we are celebrating. Thank you for being here to honor these women and for helping to keep their legacies alive.
Thank you, Cynthia. We now have greetings and congratulations from Maine's governor, senators, and representatives. Although none need introduction, they will be Governor Janet Mills, 2019 Maine Women's Hall of Fame inductee, U.S. Senator Susan Collins, 2011 Maine Women's Hall of Fame inductee, U.S. Senator Angus King, U.S. Representative Shelley Pingree, 2001 Maine Women's Hall of Fame inductee, U.S. Representative Jared Golden. We ask you to hold your applause until the conclusion of all the videos.
Hello. Today marks one of the last days of March, a month dedicated to women's history. 31 days, though, is not enough. Luckily for us, the Maine Women's Hall of Fame honors our heroines forever. The courageous women who broke barriers and built a fairer, better world for every woman and girl who came after them. Today, we induct 2 more titans who inspire us all to do what we can to preserve the rights of women and girls in Maine. Dr. Elaine O'Connor, Director of Perinatal Addiction Medicine at Maine Health and Medical Director of Maine Mom, and Frances Perkins, the first woman Secretary of the Department of Labor, first woman member of the Cabinet, and a fierce advocate for the rights of working people. The 40-hour work week, a federal minimum wage, Social Security, unemployment insurance, workers' comp, all are due to her. The many landmark accomplishments that improved the lives of working people, those were led by Frances Perkins. Frances Perkins came from humble New England beginnings, with deep ties to our very own Newcastle, Maine. I like to think that those roots in Maine helped influence her, and that through her, our state played a pretty important role in advancing the rights of American workers. Well, today in Maine, we're building on her legacy. We raised the pay of state workers. We established a minimum wage for farm workers. We enacted measures to protect equal pay, and workers with disability, helped them as well. And we defended workers from retaliation for exercising their rights. We created the very first paid family medical leave program in Maine so that no one has to quit their job in order to take care of a sick child or an aging parent. Frances Perkins went to work for the forgotten in America. Her fellow inductee into the Women's Hall of Fame has done the same, with compassion and empathy for people suffering from addiction in our state. Dr. O'Connor has served as co-chair of my opioid response clinical advisory committee since my first year in office, creating clinical guidance for medical providers across the state so they can respond to the opioid crisis with the best research-backed tools. Thank you, Dr. O'Connor. She's been our leading expert on how to reach more than 300 pregnant and postpartum women most at risk of addiction and drug overdose. Dr. O'Connor's nationally recognized research and wide-reaching partnerships with law enforcement, medical providers, corrections departments, and agencies across state government, that's all critical to the progress we've made in the fight against the opioid epidemic. Congratulations, Dr. O'Connor, on your induction. It is so well deserved. On behalf of the 1.4 million people of the state of Maine, I welcome Frances Perkins and Dr. O'Connor to the Maine Women's Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to offer a tribute to the 2026 inductees to the Maine Women's Hall of Fame. Although Dr. Elaine O'Connor and the late Frances Perkins are separated in time by nearly a century, they are united by accomplishments that improve the lives of women. Beginning with a medical practice in rural Maine more than 20 years ago, Dr. O'Connor is today nationally recognized as an innovative and compassionate expert in the treatment of substance abuse disorder, particularly among pregnant women and incarcerated individuals. Her partnership with Maine sheriffs has led to an innovative treatment program to help individuals in jails with a once-a-month shot rather than a daily pill to deal with their addiction to opioids. It has been much more effective. Dr. O'Connor's career has been defined by a focus on developing and implementing strategies that empower vulnerable people, particularly women, and allow them to thrive. I congratulate her for this well-deserved honor. And now, our second honoree. As a young professional in New York City in 1911, Frances Perkins witnessed the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire that claimed the lives of 146 workers, mostly women. That horrific event galvanized her commitment as an advocate for workers' rights and workplace safety. In 1933, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt selected her as the United States Secretary of Labor, making her the first woman to serve in a presidential cabinet, with her central role in creating the Social Security program, a crowning achievement. Today, the Frances Perkins Building in Washington, headquarters of the Department of Labor, and the Frances Perkins Homestead in Newcastle, Maine, stand as monuments to a life devoted to championing the rights of all to live in dignity. By honoring these leaders of the past and the present, the Maine Women's Hall of Fame provides role models who inspire the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you for all that you do, and have a great celebration.
It's an honor to join you for a few minutes for the induction ceremony into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame. Two great inductees tonight. Elaine O'Connor, who was really a pioneer in Maine in substance abuse medicine as it relates to pregnancy and childbirth. She has saved lives. She's made a real difference in people's lives, not only the moms, but also the babies. This is an area, unfortunately, that has not been really treated or understood well, but it's an important area of medicine here in Maine and across the country. Elaine has, as I say, been a pioneer and has really made a difference in her community and also in the entire state. The second recipient is Frances Perkins, one of the most outstanding women leaders of the 20th century. She is really the genius behind Social Security, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation insurance, all of those kinds of the social safety net we take for granted. First woman member of a president's cabinet for Franklin D. Roosevelt, and she's talk about making a difference in the country. Think where we would be without those visionary programs from the 1930s. And of course, her childhood home in Newcastle is now a national monument. And the reason I'm holding this pen, this is the pen that Joe Biden used to sign the designation of that house and grounds as a national monument to Frances Perkins. I was at the ceremony where he was signing the document. He looked up and handed me a pen. So here it is, and it's one of my proudest possessions here in Washington. So two great nominees, Elaine O'Connor, Frances Perkins. And I want to congratulate and thank the board and the members that make this honor possible for these outstanding women from Maine.
Hi everyone, Congresswoman Shelley Pingree here. If there's one thing that this year's inductees have in common, other than being proud Maine women of course, it's their deep and abiding commitment to service. Frances Perkins' legacy cannot be overstated. She was a true powerhouse of her time. Her accomplishments, from helping create Social Security to establishing unemployment insurance and a federal minimum wage, improved people's lives in a tangible, transformative way. When we think of the Dirigo spirit, her life and story, that service, feel as quintessential as it gets. To Dr. Elaine O'Connor, what a thrill it must be to share this honor with such a powerful figure in Maine's history, and how deeply deserving you are. Your leadership and distinction in your field have changed the way we think about addiction medicine, creating a model of care grounded in love, compassion, and collaboration. Thank you for your service and for the hope and healing you've brought so many people and communities all across our state. Congratulations to Dr. O'Connor, Frances Perkins, their families, and everyone at the Maine Women's Hall of Fame for continuing to honor the extraordinary contributions of Maine women. Enjoy tonight's ceremony, and thank you for celebrating these remarkable women with us.
Today, I'm honored to recognize two women who have upheld Maine's long tradition of forging new paths, Dr. Elaine O'Connor and Frances Perkins. Their induction is a testament to their innovation, advocacy, and determination. A leader in her field, Dr. O'Connor has advanced substance use treatment for over 20 years. Her work has not only saved lives, it's revolutionized the way we treat women who are struggling with addiction. Dr. O'Connor approaches her work with compassion and has inspired care providers across the country. Here in Maine, Frances Perkins needs no introduction. Her legacy as the first woman to serve in the cabinet as Secretary of Labor is well known, but that doesn't make her story any less remarkable. She advocated for a vast expansion of workers' rights and fundamentally changed the pay, hours, and organization of American labor. I want to thank the Women's Hall of Fame for organizing this event and for celebrating Maine women for over 30 years. To Dr. O'Connor, congratulations on this well-deserved accomplishment. And to the family of Frances Perkins, it's an honor to commemorate such an influential Mainer. Both of these women are trailblazers, and I'm certain that their work will continue to inspire future generations.
Our thanks to each of these busy public servants for electronically joining us today. We will now begin our formal induction program. The 2026 inductees into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame are Dr. Elaine O'Connor, the state's leading expert on the care of pregnant and postpartum women with substance use disorders, and the late Frances Perkins, the first woman to serve in a presidential cabinet, a social worker, a public servant, and trailblazer who championed workers' rights. Presenting for Dr. O'Connor is Dr. Amy Madden, Medical Director at Health Reach Community Health Centers.
Wonderful. It's so nice to be here. What a treat and what an honor just to be up in front of you all to brag about my friend. So, good afternoon to family, friends, colleagues, other people who really admire the work that's done by remarkable women in our state. I'm Amy Madden. I'm originally from Scarborough. I now live in Central Maine, where I am a family physician and geriatrician. I've been there for about 20 years, and I oversee a big network of health centers. But my reason for being here today is because I'm a huge fan of Dr. Elaine O'Connor. And as I said, very proud to call her my friend. So we've heard a lot about Elaine's accomplishments, but I'm going to review them again because they're so remarkable. So let me start by recognizing why Elaine was meant to be in the Women's Hall of Fame with all these other remarkable women. As Dr. Dora Ann Mills and Gordon Smith described in their letters of recommendation, Elaine's work as a researcher, clinician, and tireless advocate for heavily stigmatized populations has changed the way in which our state provides substance use disorder care. Because of Elaine's leadership, Maine truly lives up to its motto of Dirigo in this field. As the director of the Maine Maternal Opioid Misuse Initiative, otherwise known as Maine Mom, Elaine has led our communities in providing pregnant women and new moms with substance use disorder care that helps them improve their lives and the lives of their families. As the director of addiction medicine in 2 of our county jails, Elaine has provided a model for jails across the nation to use injectable medicines that help people enter recovery while incarcerated, sustain that recovery while incarcerated, and then when they leave incarceration, to be at a reduced risk of relapse or overdose. Elaine has created other collaborative models to bring compassionate and non-judgmental care directly to those in need. She's the medical director for Project Lifeline, a joint effort between Portland Fire Department and Maine Health that brings care to pregnant and postpartum women struggling with substance use disorder, many of whom are unhoused, and many of whom face layers of stigma and bias that make it difficult for them to otherwise access care. Elaine has force multiplied her mission in caring for people with substance use disorder in her role as an educator. She teaches, she trains, and she inspires other clinicians to try to make change in the systems in which they work. She has trained residents at the Maine Dartmouth Family Medicine Residency, and now she trains learners as the director of perinatal addiction medicine at Maine Health. She has delivered innumerable educational presentations in Maine and nationally. On a state level, as you'd heard, she has co-chaired the state's opioid response clinical advisory committee, where we craft guidelines and policy recommendations so that the state can further approve its delivery of substance use disorder care. And this is all based on her very own published research that has strengthened the evidentiary basis upon which this care is developed. So, you may ask, how does she do this? Yeah, what drives her? So to answer this question, I gathered some perspectives from other folks that have known her and worked with her throughout her life. What arose as a very important theme, and something that certainly is one that I appreciate about Elaine, is the remarkable combination of compassion and determination that has culminated in what Dr. Mills called a rare and powerful example of leadership rooted in humanity. So in terms of her determination, her childhood friend, Dr. Kendra Emery, remembers her as an impressive athlete from skiing at Kents Hill School in Colby College, and says that Elaine's determination and adventurous spirit are contagious, including when she led them deep behind the Bigelow Range on fat bikes. A teacher from Kents Hill, Janet Crane, says she saw firsthand Elaine's talent and determination when Elaine, faced with the lack of a second-year AP Calculus class at Kents Hill, asked for a course to be created just for her. And her colleague, Dr. Andrea Troncalli, says, Elaine will encounter a problem and have the confidence and bravery to move forward with finding a solution, even if it has not been considered before. More mortal individuals might be discouraged and see the way it couldn't work, but Elaine has a vision and determination to figure out how to get it done. Elaine's compassion needs no further definition. She lives it every day. But it is that compassion that has stirred many others to join her in this important work. Corey Miller, a clinician with whom I have the pleasure to work in my own organization, says, the compassion she showed working with a population of people that many folks choose to ignore is the reason that he's worked almost exclusively with people with substance use disorders over the past decade, and her mentorship and guidance have been invaluable. So I believe it's this combination of grit and compassion that's the how behind the why we are celebrating Elaine's contributions to Mainer's Health today. Now I'm going to cry. Not looking at you. As one colleague stated, Elaine is a force of nature. No one else can do what Elaine does. She does important and hard work, raising our awareness of our shared humanity, all the while making a phenomenal chocolate chip cookie and being an exceptional mother, partner, daughter, and friend. Nope, we're not looking at each other. Thank you for the honor of speaking about Elaine today.
Thank you, Dr. Madden, for that warm and personal introduction to Dr. O'Connor. I am now pleased to welcome to the front of the stage 2026 inductee into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame, Dr. Elaine O'Connor.
Oh, should I take that down? Sorry.
We're waiting for the applause to subside.
Oh, okay.
Dr. O'Connor, I have for you this award, which I will read, Maine Women's Hall of Fame, Honoring the Past, Inspiring the Future, 2026 inductee, Dr. Elaine O'Connor. And I have for you a pin designed for Maine Women's Hall of Fame inductees, which I will pass to you in order not to risk stabbing you.
Thank you.
Dr. O'Connor.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll pass it on. Thank you so much. This is like beyond wild. I mean, like I can't really wrap my brain around this. So I'm just going to kind of do the best I can and take you on a journey, I guess. First, I want to begin with some thank yous. I want to thank the Maine Women's Hall of Fame for this tremendous honor. It really doesn't seem real that I'm becoming a member of this unbelievably remarkable group of women, a sisterhood of bold and courageous leaders. I'm thrilled to forever be linked to the amazing Frances Perkins, who I've had the privilege of learning more about, and I would have loved to pull up a chair next to the one she had so much courage to accept. I want to thank Jay and Kelly for nominating me, and Gordon and Dora for writing such beautiful letters of support, And I want to thank my dear friend, Amy Madden, for the beautiful introduction. And I want to thank Bill Alto, who is watching today with his wife, Sue, from Hawaii. Without Bill, there simply would be no Elaine on the stage today. More than 20 years ago, he wanted to start a substance use disorder treatment program, and he had all the experience and the passion to get it done. He did not accept no, despite all the barriers and naysayers in his way. And I told myself that one day I would be Bill. I would use my passion and experience to do different and better things. And I want to thank all the people who are here today, which it's like so touching. My friends and my colleagues, and most especially my family. You're my biggest source of support on the good days and the bad. And without you, none of this would be possible. So I don't know a whole lot about how to write a good speech, so I'm doing what everybody does, which is that I Googled it, for real. Write like you talk is number one, though I'm going to try not to swear as much as I do when I talk, which will be a challenge. 2, tell a story. 3, be authentic. And 4, don't just speak, say something. So here goes. People ask me about a day in my life, and here it is, just one day. The day begins with a patient who could be mistaken for a school teacher, petite, kind, quiet, but who under the surface has one of the most severe alcohol use disorders I've ever seen. Sadly, she does not understand the grip of the disease has on her and minimizes any discussion about returns to use. Her baby is no longer in her care. This is a relief to me as she and her partner have violent interactions when they're both drunk. The ED notes I read after their last fight describe an individual that I scarcely recognize, and certainly not the school teacher I sit in front of. I'm grateful she's here today, and I hope I can help her tame the demon that lies beneath. My next patient is a no-show, and I use the unexpected free time to try to figure out whether we can work with the local county jail to suspend the disability payments being sent to one of their inmates. He strangled my patient and threatened to break her jaw. He also has untreated methamphetamine-induced psychosis. Prior to his arrest, he would sometimes attend appointments with my patient. He would walk in circles in the waiting room, very clearly having a conversation. While the words made sense, the sequence of the words did not. A classic case of word salad. On one level, it was fascinating to watch. On the other, I could understand why she was terrified of him. My patient is genuinely concerned that if he can use his disability money to bail, that she will be at substantial risk. She has a protection order in place, but that's little comfort to her because she knows his past. Remarkably, the next patient is a patient or woman I met a few months ago when she was 17 weeks pregnant, writhing in opiate withdrawal and demanding a termination. The anger that emitted from her mouth and eyes was impressive. I worried a bit about what the student standing next to me was taking in. The person today hardly resembles that individual. She's focused, thoughtful, has excellent insight, and is working hard to maintain her recovery. She ended up missing her appointment for the termination, and now it's too late for that. At first, I was sad for her as she desperately wanted to end the pregnancy. She said, "You can't miss what you don't know." My heart hurt when she said that, as I could see the anguish she feels from not being able to see her 15-month-old daughter. Now pregnancy seems to be what's keeping her alive. Strange how the world works some days. As I exit the room, I'm wondering whether I should call Portland PD for a welfare check. I cannot get into contact with my 9-week pregnant patient. She's using copious amounts of fentanyl. I've been trying to transition her to buprenorphine, but it has not been successful. She had a new heart valve put in last year because of a blood infection from injecting drugs with contaminated needles. She had a follow-up with a specialist earlier this week, and I could read the doctor's disdain through the note. Sort of a, why do I bother caring for this patient who's still doing drugs? She was supposed to go to a short-term detoxification program after her visit with the specialist. We called the program together last week, and they indicated they had beds. She felt that she really needed that level of support as she transitioned to buprenorphine. I'm unable to reach her by phone despite multiple messages. The detox facility holding the bed has been unable to reach her and calling her daily. Might she be dead on her couch at home? I had seen this before. I'm always wary of calling emergency contacts, but I decided to call her mother, offered up the excuse that I needed to confirm her phone number. This allowed me to casually ask when she had last spoken to the patient. Oh, just a few minutes ago, she's doing her laundry. Well, no welfare check needed. If I could read the disdain in the doctor's note, there's no question that my patient felt it. The shame, the guilt, the feeling of worthlessness We never heard from her again, and she died 2 months later. If you do not believe that stigma can kill, I can tell you definitively that it does. The afternoon's new pregnant patient is a bubbly 23-year-old who is excited to be in recovery and pregnant. She was released from jail about 5 months ago, had done 7 months for drug trafficking. Fentanyl and crack were her thing. Smoking intravenous, intranasal started when she was 18. Had a rough childhood. Her parents were divorced, and she lived with her mother until her mother went to prison when my patient was in the 5th grade. It was foster care after that because there was no other family to care for her. The last patient of the day appears to be a no-show. That's concerning to me. I'm unable to reach her by phone, says that her number is no longer in service and there are no other numbers available. She had a miscarriage early in pregnancy, but she took it reasonably well because this one was not my fault. She blamed herself for her previous miscarriages when she had experienced opiate withdrawal, and this time she was in treatment. I'm relieved when my team tells me that she just called to say she would be late to her appointment. I chuckled to myself a bit that appointment times are really more of a suggestion than a requirement. When she and her boyfriend arrived, they were quickly ushered into a room because it was so late in the day. My nurse's face looked troubled, and given all that she has seen, this expression gets my attention. There's something wrong with them, was all she offered. I stopped what I was doing and walked down the hallway to the exam room. When I entered, they both appeared distressed, and I could see that my patient had been crying. What happened, I asked. They said they had been driving down to her appointment and she needed to run a quick errand at a discount retailer. Her partner had stayed in the car. She returned to the vehicle to find her partner slumped over with a needle in his arm and blue. She fought to extract him from the car and called 911. She tried to do CPR while waiting for the ambulance, but stumbled through the steps. When the ambulance arrived, he was administered 4 doses of naloxone before he became coherent. He refused transport to the ED, got back in the car, and headed to my office. I could tell that he was unwell. The naloxone wears off much quicker than the fentanyl. I pleaded with him to go to the ED, but he wanted to leave. I sent him home with as much naloxone as he could carry and told my patient to hang in there and that we were there for her unconditionally. And this is all in only 1 day, and my team can attest to this. Not long ago, I had the most wonderful meal at a restaurant in the Old Port. I decided to walk it off after eating, and as my journey begins, I'm aware of the unhoused folks in the area. The folks slumped over, still breathing, but at the edge. The rhythmic sway of enough fentanyl to make the pain go away, but not enough to kill you. It's a dance, not one that I ever want to do myself, but I feel some sense of relief that they can escape from the despair, if even only for a moment. These are my people. I smile gently at each of the folks I see. I make eye contact. I see them. I can't take their pain away, but I can acknowledge their suffering. There's a young unhoused couple sitting on a raised section of brick. I stop near them, leaving enough space to honor their privacy and autonomy. I see a middle-aged couple walking toward us, and I put my head down. They walk closer to the unhoused couple sitting on the brick. They're within inches of them, but do not see them. They're pointing off at the islands in the distance, commenting on the birds. Notice them. While I'm not saying these words out loud, they're raging in my head. But they don't. When they're done commenting on how wonderful the night is, they move on. I look at the face of the woman sitting on the ground, and there's a shame that was not there before. I say nothing, but I'm sad. I'm sorry they did not notice you. You deserve to be seen. People ask me how I managed to convince the 2 most conservative sheriffs in the state to implement comprehensive substance use disorder treatment in their jails. You know who required no convincing? The sheriffs. They said things to me like, the people in this jail are my neighbors, and I have an ethical responsibility to make them better off when they re-enter the community than they were when they came in. It's his emphasis at the end of the news story about a big drug bust that recovery and confidential support is available if you call your local sheriff's office. It has never been about a lack of commitment. It's been about finding the financial resources needed. I was sitting on a call not long ago, nearly begging a doctor to place an order so that another medical provider could see my patient. I'm asking you to place an order. I'm not asking you to provide the care or even be kind to my patient, though you should be capable of doing that. And better yet, stop writing about how my patient is nodding off, giggling too much, or too sedated, so she must be doing drugs. Apparently, she's not exhibiting the appropriate level of sedation after delivering her baby by crash C-section. You know who would not be held to that nodding off standard? Me. A hospital is launching yet another anti-stigma campaign. I'm angry and tired of all these campaigns. You are medical providers. Get with the program, people. Be like a sheriff. Jails were never meant to be medical facilities, but that is exactly what they've become, and you're considerably more likely to be offered substance use disorder treatment in a jail than you are on an inpatient floor at a hospital. Let that sink in for a minute. There's a reason I've ridden my Peloton over 33,000 miles. For context, because I looked this up, that's 1.33 times around the equator, or nearly 12 times across the country. The bike that goes nowhere has taken me the places I needed to go. Every day is hard. Every day is really hard. Some days are sadder than anyone should have to bear. I keep some of this to myself because there's not an audience for my stories in most settings. I'm crushed by the pain I have seen, but simultaneously grateful that I'm someone who can be trusted with this pain. People ask me frequently, how do you still do this work? Most days I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know it's where I'm needed most. And I'm surrounded by people who work just as hard as I do and who are just as committed as I am. When I think about the work we do, it's best described as the stubborn, relentless, and unwavering determination to continue pursuing a goal despite facing significant difficulties and obstacles. Feeling like you're swimming in a terrible current that will one day take you over the waterfall, but each time the work feels entirely unsustainable, someone reaches out to help. Some do not even know they're doing it. This is the part of the speech where I plan to tell you a feel-good story. Sadly, I had to rewrite the speech Monday evening after the feel-good story turned into a terrible tragedy last weekend. Do we win? We do. Do we win as often as we should? We do not. And our wins are rarely the celebratory overtime goal that's scored with the team grins or high fives. Rather, they're long and arduous battles, a desert hike in 100-degree weather where you fail to pack enough water. You survive, but you and your kidneys are never really the same. Still, it's the women who say, I know I would not have my baby without you, or I can never thank you guys enough for all the things you did for me. You have been my biggest cheerleaders, and I appreciate all the support you have given to me. It feels so good knowing I have a team of strong and beautiful ladies backing me up, and they are here. Or simply the grandmother holding her new grandson who says with a tear in her eye, if I ever win the lottery, I'm giving it all to this program because this is the only place my daughter feels safe. I want to thank everyone in this room who said yes. It started with Bill, then it was Leanna 20 years ago who said we needed a drug overdose task force and we were assigned the finest conference room right next to the old morgue. Amy, who invited me to co-chair our hospital's opiate steering committee, and Tim for signing on to be one of the first emergency rooms to deliver real-time substance use disorder treatment. Corey for saying yes to delivering an entirely innovative program out of an old office building with no sinks, constructing an inpatient consult service from scratch, and for not caring what holiday weekend I had him take call. To Vanderbilt University for saying yes to enrolling me in a doctoral program that showed me things could be different. Our first assignment, Clayton Christensen's The Innovator's Dilemma, introduced me to the concept of disruptive innovation, that to really make change, you had to dare to think big and believe that anything was possible. I never looked back. It was Somerset Sheriff and District Attorney saying yes to an alternative sentencing program when no judge was available, and now we have dozens of successful ASAP graduates. It was Gordon offering me the dream of a lifetime, the opportunity to work with Lisa to craft policy and clinical recommendations for the entire state through the Opioid Clinical Advisory Committee. It was MaineCare saying yes to building Maine Mom, an integrated perinatal substance use disorder treatment program that's team-based across the state. It's the Portland Fire Department saying yes when I knew that I never again wanted to feel as helpless as I did the night it was 30 degrees below zero and I had a pregnant woman in labor on the street who likely did not know how dire her situation was. With Project Lifeline, we see patients living under bridges and on building stoops wrapped in blankets and trying to protect themselves from the elements while using drugs so that they can temporarily forget what a brutal task that is. Then it was Sheriff Lancaster, Greg, and Kylie who believed we could use a once-a-month injectable treatment medication and that there was no reason why a little jail in rural Maine could not lead the nation. I still can't really believe that my blind optimism would somehow manage us to obtain millions of dollars to provide treatment to some of the most vulnerable and marginalized people out there. While I'm humbled by the amazing national press, I am most grateful for the simple comments. I would be dead without this program, and this program saved my family. Later, it was Sheriff Nichols, Sergeant Close, and again reunited with Leanna, who said yes to innovation at Franklin County Jail. And to Caroline and Maxine, who've done so much for me and connected me with Chelsea and the Maine Public Defenders so that my women can have a level playing field when they become involved with child welfare. And then it's my Maine Mom team at CAM in Portland who keep the ship running every day while I'm here, there, and everywhere. They work tirelessly serving deeply marginalized and traumatized women, and they do so with passion, grace, perseverance, and enthusiasm that is unmatched. Some are graduating with new degrees or returning to school to advance their education, but that is as it should be because they will change the world. Shortly after our jail program appeared on the front page of the New York Times, I sat in Sheriff Lancaster's office close to tears and simply said, "Thank you for not saying no." And he had the perfect response, which was, "Well, I didn't know I had a choice." Which also says something about what it's like to work with me. I possess a somewhat brash optimism, a reckless form of hope that persists despite skepticism and barriers, a proactive, shameless mindset that refuses to be deterred by fear, one that acts decisively to create a better future rather than passively waiting for it to happen. I'm most proud of the diversity of individuals in this room today. Healthcare leaders, elected officials, individuals who work for state, county, and city governments, law enforcement and correctional officers, firefighters, paramedics, public policy experts, partners in research, people in recovery, people who remind me that my work matters and who show up on the good days and the bad. In closing, I want to speak to the individuals with substance use disorder who are not here today, but who might be watching. This is where I'll cry. You deserve better than the cards that you were dealt. You deserve better than the adverse childhood experiences you had, better than having to trade your body for drugs, a place to sleep, or food to eat. Better than being forced to work as a drug mule. Better than people asking you how you could choose drugs over your baby. Better than being constantly marginalized and shamed by a society that doesn't seem to care. You deserve to be seen, and I'm asking you to keep fighting. We are here, and there is hope. And I can promise you one thing, I'm not going anywhere. And me and all the people in this room who stand beside me, we're just getting started. I think.
Thank you very much, Dr. O'Connor. Thank you for speaking to us, and thank you for the amazing work you do for these women and their babies. From the trustees, congratulations on your induction into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame. Now I'd like to turn our attention to the second 2026 inductee. Presenting for the late Frances Perkins is Laura Fortman, Commissioner of the Maine Department of Labor and a 2007 inductee into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame.
Thank you and good afternoon. And there is absolutely no way to follow that. No, there isn't. I mean, that is one of the most powerful presentations I've ever seen, and the work that you are doing is phenomenal. So it is an honor to be up here today presenting Frances Perkins along with you. So thank you so much, Dr. O'Connor. So good afternoon. As I'm thinking about how do you follow that? There is no following that. And at the same time, the legacy of Frances Perkins is so embedded in the work that all of us are doing, that as I was listening to Dr. O'Connor, I was thinking, and I know, and I've been told Lynn is a real hard taskmaster, and do not go over your 3 minutes. So I'm going to try to not just riff on things, but to just say that there are some parallels in some of the work that you're doing, that I hear echoes of some of the work that Frances Perkins did in her early career as a social worker and working with young women. So, but I will not go there. I will stick to my prepared remarks, but thank you. I'd like to begin with a quote that has guided me for nearly 20 years in public service. Frances Perkins said, "The people are what matter to government, and a government should aim to give all the people under its jurisdiction the best possible life." That simple but profound idea has been my touchstone. When we think about Frances Perkins, as you've heard today from numerous presentations, we naturally think of her groundbreaking policy achievements, and they were nothing short of extraordinary. She was the architect of landmark policies, restricting child labor, establishing minimum wage and overtime protections, advancing workplace safety and health, creating Social Security and unemployment insurance, achievements that just represent a portion of her remarkable legacy. These were not minor reforms. They fundamentally reshaped the relationship between workers and government and laid the foundation for our modern social insurance system. But today I want to shift from that list of her accomplishments and reflect instead on the ways her legacy continues to resonate and inspire people across our state. I've had the privilege of serving as Maine's Labor Commissioner under two governors, both Governor John Baldacci and Janet Mills, and also as Deputy Administrator of the Wage and Hour Division at the U.S. Department of Labor under President Barack Obama. In each of those roles, I've tried to carry forward that spirit of Frances Perkins. And I was trying to see, how old are the people in this room here? I think most of you can remember that during Governor Baldacci's term, we had the Great Recession. Does that ring a bell? Yeah, some folks in here remember that. Now, at that time, we experienced the most significant economic crisis since the Great Depression. Paper mills were closing, unemployment was rising steadily, families were scared, businesses were struggling, the pressure on state labor agencies across the country was enormous. At the same time, something a little bit unusual was happening in New England. At that time, we had a number of women leading labor agencies across New England. In particular, New York, Massachusetts, and Maine, we all were being led by women commissioners or secretaries. As we worked nonstop to get desperately needed unemployment insurance benefits to thousands of residents, we searched for inspiration, guidance, and frankly, reassurance. And we, at that time, discovered Frances Perkins. And then we all promptly began arguing about which one of us could claim her. Massachusetts claimed her because she was born there and educated there. New York insisted she was clearly theirs. She had served as their labor commissioner, and her leadership following the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire had transformed workplace safety in America. And of course, I claimed her for Maine because of the formative time that she had spent at her family homestead in Newcastle and the place that she returned to again and again to renew and restore herself. And it was the place she ultimately chose for her final resting place, just down the road from what is now the Frances Perkins Homestead National Historic Landmark. And in truth, she belonged to all of us. But I like to think that Maine helped nurture the bedrock strength and steadfastness that defined her. During the Great Recession, we often asked ourselves the question, what would Frances do? And the answers to us were surprisingly clear. She would have the courage to say what needed to be said, even when it was unpopular. She would let the lived experiences of workers drive policy, not ideology. She would use data rigorously and unapologetically. She would be inclusive and bring people to the table. And most of all, she would act. And I think that we heard Dr. O'Connor say the same thing, must act. And all of us thought if Frances Perkins could design and stand up an unemployment compensation program during the Great Depression, when the nation had never attempted anything like that, surely we could innovate and deliver it effectively during the Great Recession. That perspective mattered. It gave us confidence, and it gave us backbone. A decade passed after the Great Recession, a decade of rebuilding, steady progress, and cautious optimism. And then when I returned to the Department of Labor, the economy had regained its footing. We were focused on supporting workers and communities in new ways. And then, and this really was not my fault, COVID-19 pandemic hit. And once again, everything was upended. It upended how people worked, learned, and supported their families. Once again, unemployment insurance became the backbone of a vital effort, keeping the economy afloat while giving people income for basic needs, allowing them to stay home, stay safe, and protect their health. Once again, state labor agencies were on the front line of an unprecedented crisis. But this time, more people in the labor movement and in public service knew Frances Perkins' story. Her example was no longer hidden history. Her work ethic, steady, pragmatic, worker-centered, and fearless in tackling any challenge, was familiar to many of us. That inspiration carried us through the pandemic and continues to guide us today. Her belief that government exists to serve people, to give them the best possible life, is not frozen in history. It is alive. It encouraged us to think boldly about modern social insurance. A powerful example here in Maine right now is our new paid family and medical leave program, which will begin paying benefits on May 1st. Yeah, I hear, and that must be Desti from the women's lobby out there whooping it up because, again, this is an effort that has taken many, many years and many, many people to bring it to fruition. And May 1st, 2026, we will begin paying benefits. While this was not one of Frances Perkins' original programs, it is very much in the spirit of her work. It recognizes that workers are whole people, parents, caregivers, family members, and that economic security and dignity go hand in hand. That is her legacy. For me, Frances Perkins is not just a historical figure. She's a question I carry into difficult moments. Are we centering people? Are we being courageous? Are we building systems that give all people the best possible life? Being here today, celebrating women like Dr. O'Connor, who have shaped Maine's history, reminds me that her legacy is not behind us. It is in this room. It is in the work of each of you, and it is in the generations of women who will continue to lead with courage, compassion, and conviction. Thank you for honoring her, and thank you for carrying her spirit forward.
Commissioner Fortman, thank you very much for your insight into this inductee. I am now pleased to welcome to the front of the stage Amanda Hatch, Executive Director at the Frances Perkins Center, to accept the award and pin on behalf of the late Frances Perkins and to offer remarks for us. Thank you, Amanda. Amanda, we have this award for the Frances Perkins Center. It says Maine Women's Hall of Fame, Honoring the Past, Inspiring the Future, 2026 inductee, Frances Perkins.
Thank you.
and a pin for your display. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know how far I have to stand away. Okay. And still be able to read the text in front of me, because I also said I would not go off script. And I have the very unenviable task of taking the long career of one of the most influential people in American history and summarizing her significance in 10 minutes or less. So much of what I am about to share, many in the room are likely to already know, especially because we heard some of the bullet points in videos already, but bear with me. This is intentional, why I am not giving a beautiful speech. I did not Google that, but more of a lecture, because even if we do know some of the facts about Frances Perkins, we also know that Frances Perkins, like many women, has been excluded from the history books. So as executive director of the nonprofit established in her name and honor, I will take any opportunity to reshare and recommit to the public memory the amazing accomplishments and enduring significance of this American icon. Frances Perkins, as you well know, is perhaps best known as the first woman to serve in a U.S. presidential cabinet, appointed Secretary of Labor by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933. She was the architect of many of the New Deal programs that protected workers, helped the country recover from the Great Depression, and created the modern middle class. Some of those policies like Social Security, unemployment and workers' compensation insurances, minimum wages, maximum work hours, bans on child labor, health and safety reforms, and so much more. But her story did not begin in Washington, D.C., which is why she is rightfully being recognized in Maine today. And thank you, Commissioner Fortman, for fighting the other states to claim Frances Perkins here in the state of Maine. The Perkins family first settled in Newcastle in the mid-1700s. The iconic 1837 brick house that you can visit today is the remaining centerpiece of the family's property along the banks of the Damariscotta River. Fanny Coralie Perkins, she would later change her name to Frances, but she was born Fanny, which I will talk about in a moment. She was born and raised actually in Massachusetts, but returned to Maine each childhood summer to spend time with her grandmother, Cynthia Otis Perkins, whom she said was the most influential person in her life. The picturesque 57-acre family homestead remained a place of respite and reflection throughout Perkins's busy career in later years. She inherited the property in 1927, owned it until her death in 1965, and was buried alongside her husband in a nearby cemetery. Members of the Perkins family continued to live in the brick house until our nonprofit, the Frances Perkins Center, purchased it from her grandson and one of our founding board members, the late Tomlin Perkins Coggeshall, in 2020. In 2014, the Frances Perkins Homestead was designated a National Historic Landmark, and in 2024, the Frances Perkins National Monument. But more on that later. I will interject here, even though I promised not to go off script, that the video of Senator King really made me laugh, because that pen, in many of the photos I have from also being in that room that day, he is holding the pen as if it is his Oscar, as if he were awarded. So it was not just a prop for that video. That pen was clearly very important to him, and he was so excited and so proud of the state of Maine on that day when President Biden designated the national monument. But before we get there, we need to understand how Fanny became Frances and Frances became Madam Secretary. When Fanny Perkins graduated from Mount Holyoke College in 1902, her parents, like many at the time, intended that she live at home and take a teaching position or perhaps find work with the church until a suitable marriage prospect appeared. Fanny had other ideas. Ultimately, she left her parents' home in Worcester for a teaching position at Ferry Hall, an elite school for girls in Illinois. Further demonstrating her independence, she changed her name and her religious affiliation, somewhat scandalous at the time, from the Congregational Church of her forebears. So in June 1905, she was confirmed in the Episcopal faith as Frances Perkins. Frances later studied sociology and economics at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School and eventually made her way to New York City, where she received a master's degree at Columbia University and lobbied for worker protection laws with the New York Consumers League. As we've heard today, in 1911, she witnessed the horrific Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire that killed 146 people, later proclaiming that the day the New Deal was born. After the fire, she played a crucial role in investigating similar tragedies and recommending new state fire safety practices that would set the precedent for standards across the country. Frances Perkins rose in New York state politics during the 1910s and 20s, working closely with Governor Al Smith and later serving as the inaugural New York State Industrial Commissioner for Franklin Delano Roosevelt during his tenure at that time as governor. We haven't even left in New York at this point. In 1933, FDR asked Perkins to join his presidential cabinet as Secretary of Labor, and she remained in this role until 1945. That's what we've heard a lot about already today. Later, Perkins wrote a best-selling biography of FDR, was appointed to the United States Civil Service Commission, and lectured at Cornell University's School of Industrial Relations. Perkins' vast professional achievements were, of course, accomplished alongside her personal responsibilities as a mother, a wife, daughter, sister, grandmother, caregiver, parishioner, community member, and beloved friend to many. Many of the programs and laws Perkins championed continue to impact the lives of millions today, including 1/4 of Mainers who receive Social Security benefits, more than half of whom are women. Women were and remain disproportionately affected by adverse economic conditions and lower paying jobs throughout their lives, making protections such as minimum wages and maximum work hours vital for equitable economic security. Yet her impact on American women runs even deeper than these direct financial implications. Frances Perkins also knowingly paved the way for other women in politics and public service. She strategically navigated the male-dominated government at every step of her career, even before women could cast their votes in federal elections. Of her decision to become Secretary of Labor, she later reflected, and this is a quote where she can actually speak to you today. She later reflected, quote, "The door might not be open to a woman again for a long, long time, and I had a kind of duty to other women to walk in and sit down on the chair that was offered, and so establish the right of others long hence and far distant in geography to sit in the high seats." So as I mentioned earlier, her family's homestead in Newcastle was designated a national monument in December 2024 by then President Biden. The proclamation to establish the Frances Perkins National Monument says, "Few Americans have had a deeper influence in shaping labor and social policy in the United States than Frances Perkins." I personally could not agree more. And at the risk of sounding cliche, I find inspiration from Frances Perkins each and every day in both my professional and personal life. Whenever I'm overwhelmed by the changes that I personally hope to see in the world, simultaneously overcome with possibility, that blind optimism that we heard about from Dr. O'Connor, but then also apathy, what I'm hearing a lot as I do work together in my community. I find myself looking to Frances for inspiration. Perkins's vision that a government should aim to give all the people under its jurisdiction the best possible life may sound idealistic to some and outright impossible to others right now. But I urge everyone here today to look at Frances, as I do, as a source of hope of what is possible. Not always by the many or the loudest, but sometimes by the few. And that's, again, where I think I see a lot of connections between Frances Perkins and Dr. O'Connor here today. Sometimes it takes that blind optimism and that one person driving forward the work that needs to happen to change the world for the better. Frances was a single person with sincere ambitions, steadfast values, and unwavering tenacity. She used the resources she had throughout her life, whether it was her intellect and wit, her carefully curated political allyships, or her closest friendships, faith, and guiding principles, to drive her vision to action. And those actions continue to positively impact millions. And as I close today, I would like to take this time to remind the audience that the work begun by Frances Perkins is ongoing. She herself said, quote, "There is much to be done. I am not going to be doing it. It is up to you to contribute some small part to a program of human betterment for all time." So whether we are protecting the policies she championed or critically reassessing their sustainability and inclusion of all people, Frances herself knew and intended that others would carry this legacy forward. While this induction into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame is a fitting recognition of her enduring legacy and deep ties to the state of Maine, I like to think of it as the perfect end of a chapter on Frances Perkins in a much longer book about women changing the world for the better. The Frances Perkins Center is committed to sharing Frances Perkins's chapter in this history while also inspiring the next generations of leaders to use her as a blueprint for future progress. So my sincerest thanks to Frances Perkins, and congratulations on her well-deserved induction into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Amanda. As the Maine Women's Hall of Fame continues into its 37th year, there is no shortage of strong Maine women who should be inducted. Please consider the Maine women you know and read about and admire, and check our website in the hall for information on how to nominate them. Thank you to all who have joined us today for this program, and to those who have donated in honor or in memory of family and friends. Your donations will help fund future induction ceremonies and our scholarships. If you have not had the opportunity to support our work, please use the link on the Futurama website or the QR code found in your program. At this time, we hope you can join us for the installation of the portraits at the Cates Library, diagonally across the parking lot. For those who are currently attending electronically or otherwise unable to join us at the installation of portraits today, I urge you to find or make an opportunity to visit the display at the library and immerse yourself in the inspiration these women provide. Again, congratulations to Dr. O'Connor and to the Frances Perkins Center. Two quick notices as we depart. There's a guest book. If you haven't signed it on the way in, will be near the exit. Please stop and sign it. And we would like to have a picture of the past honorees if you'd come to the front right after the ceremony. Again, thank you all for joining us.